Mythos Busters, investigating the mystery, monsters, and madness of Arkham Horror, the card game.
Hello and welcome to episode 135 of Mythos Busters. I'm Sean. Joining me tonight are the rest of the Mythos Busters. We've got Ian. Hey, Ian.
Hello.
How's it going?
Oh, it's good. It's going good. I'm excited for. I don't know. Even though it probably hasn't been that long since we recorded, it feels like a long time for some reason. I think it's just been a crazy summer for lots of reasons.
Yeah, there is that.
Yeah, but I'm ready.
Excellent. Joining us as well is Scott. Hey, Scott.
Oh, hi.
How's your Saturday?
Really good. I was actually at a neighborhood barbecue and I realized, oh, we're recording in 9 minutes. So I had to just peel it home. Left the wife and kids there, so they're fine, I'm sure.
Oh, is that what that stain on your shirt was? Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
Did you stack a plate high to take with you for the recording?
No. It's funny because they just started cooking the burgers right before I left, so I just grabbed one and ate it in the car on the way home.
Oh, no.
Yeah. I totally lost track of time, but totally worth it.
Much as I treasure our podcast time, that makes me sad that we pulled you away from that.
That's all right. There will be more. There's at least 3 weeks of summer left up here in Canada, so.
Until Moosey the Moose sticks his head out of his cave and sees his shadow.
No, the snow just shows up.
Oh.
Yeah, sorry.
That's
we have a groundhog, too.
Oh, you guys have a separate groundhog?
Yeah, Wallerton Willie, I think his name is.
Wait, Puxatawny Phil is not the only groundhog?
I think
You're shattering my American brain right now, Scott.
I think a lot of places have different groundhogs.
Wow. Okay, well, today I learned.
Mm-hmm.
Joining us as well is Justin. Hey, Justin.
Hey guys, Saturday night recording.
Hell yeah. Did you know that Puxatawny Phil was not the one and only?
No, I'm scribbling notes on my desk to look into this.
Must confirm. Well, anyway, so we've got a fun recording night set out for y'all. If you have forgotten or haven't heard our last episode, we're changing up our format and we're doing double header recordings. So this is going to be 135. It's going to be our more standard episode. So we've got our regular intros, got a little bit of patron catch-up, some news, and then our discussion topic is going to be diving further into the Edge of the Earth campaign box. But sprinkled in amongst all our regulars, we've got something really special. We've got a couple of player cards from the Scarlet Keys Investigator expansion, right? That's what that one's called. I'm still getting the naming conventions down.
Yep.
And we're gonna throw those ones at you guys tonight too. Whew! It's fun. So Scarlet Keys is here. If you haven't checked our last spoiler, please do. It's on our Twitch and YouTube channels. And yeah, so guys, before we bust into any of that, let's check in with patrons. Ian, what we got?
All right, so for our Patreon stuff this time, first off, we'll give thanks to our board members. That's Chris B, Chris H, Chris M, Chris U, our conglomeration of Chris's, Morton, Jared, Ian, Kyle, Philip, Patrick, Abilio, Jesse, Chad, and Robert. Thanks so much for your huge support of the podcast. And as always, we have a special shout out to a random patron, and this time that's going to Dean Durant. Thanks, Dean, for your support as well. Wouldn't be able to do all the things we do without our patron support. As always, please check out mythosmerch.com, a site for all kinds of merch. We're always, I guess not always, but periodically we're adding new kinds of swag there. So check out what we have. And most importantly, we always love when people send us pictures or even just share stories of someone recognizing it in the wild. It's just good stroking of our egos, really, I think, more than anything. Yeah, always important.
And how?
I mean, why else have a podcast, right? We also have some new job titles to give out this time. So we'll go around the horn. I'll start off. Actually, since there's four of us, I'll have everyone else do the work for me. Sean, why don't you read the first job title there?
Well, our first new patron at the $5 or more level is Scott.
Oh,
And Scott, oh hi, not that Scott,
oh,
other
whoops.
Scott.
Oh, okay, other Scott.
And Scott will be filling the role of the FFG article hunter. They've become a little scarce on the ground nowadays.
Endangered species, if you will. Yeah.
So we gotta send out hunting parties. No one tells Scott, but his duties are basically the same as our F5 spammer, just sitting on the FFG site and spamming F5. So welcome, Scott.
I really don't know why I didn't have Scott read the title for Scott. It's just a missed opportunity.
Missed opportunity.
Okay.
It would have
Scott-
been really confusing.
Scott, you could read the next one.
All right, we got Jacob Peterson. And Jacob Peterson, you're going to be the customizable card permutation tester. Is Jacob going to need an assistant? Because this is a lot of work.
I'm gonna take a swing here. I think it's Jakob, but just so we have both bases covered. Now we have both bases covered. Last I checked, Jakob had not finished with the axe, so we're gonna have to check back in with him in like 6 months, I think.
Fair enough.
Were we talking last time that someone like crunched the numbers and it's some insane number of permutations per customizable card?
Yeah, someone said like 250,000 for one of the cards. But I mean, that's like, counting one of each, and then
the most granular.
Yeah, something like that. So
It's still a lot, though. I think, I probably made this joke before already, but it's probably going to be a separate episode for each customizable card when we do our reviews. But that's it for patron business this time around.
Wonderful. What do we have on the news front, guys? Gen Con's going on as we speak. Well, welcome all you Gen Cants. We appreciate you.
they also spoiled Kamani Jones and their backside, like a full spoiler.
Ooh.
Did we have their front side? I can't remember.
I think it showed up in something. I remember like seeing a screen cap of it. I don't know how official it was.
Do we want to go over it?
Sure.
Yeah,
Okay.
let's do it.
I'll just read the front just to. I have these pictures from a different Discord server, so I can't share them with you guys. But I'll do some reading. So Kamani Jones, the security consultant, 3 willpower, 2 intellect, 2 combat, 5 agility, criminal traded, and then Zappy Boy action. Engage an exhausted enemy at your location. Reaction: when you attempt to evade an exhausted non-elite enemy, add your intellect to your skill value for this attempt. If you succeed by at least X, discard that enemy. X is that enemy's remaining health. And then Elder Sign is +1. If there's an exhausted enemy at your location, you automatically succeed instead. And 8/6 for health sanity.
Is Kaimani's last name Waylay?
Kamani Waylay Jones. Yeah.
Kaimani Waylay.
Yeah. That seems really good. I mean, just built-in enemy getting rid of stuff.
It's pretty great. And it's not like a damage thing. It is just a straight defeat. So that means something. Much like Waylay.
Well, it's discard, which is not defeating.
Oh yeah,
It's
that's
important
true.
for
That's true.
some.
It's
Yeah.
Yes, that's even more important than what I said.
Yeah, and I like that. So their intellect is 2, which isn't super high, but 5 agility, so you're evading at 7, and you're probably going to pump it up a bit. I mean, you could probably get rid of some pretty chunky enemies with them.
Yeah.
non-elite limits you a bit, but
Yeah, there was some chatter in our patron chat the other day about just different evade gators, and my boy Finn came up, of course, but I did mention that Kaimani has a chance maybe of unseating Finn. I can't say it's still early for my favorite gator spot, just because it seems like their ability fits like right in my wheelhouse of like evade all day and do some more
check
evading.
those wandering eyes, Ian.
I know. I
I
can't
just
help
don't
it.
even know how to feel about the world right now. Hearing that from Ian.
Again, it's still early, so I can't promise, but if anyone has a shot, I think it's a 5 evade investigator. He can just straight up get rid of enemies by evading. But also, I do really like the idea that someone was mentioning of why pick? Why do you even need to pick? Just do a two-handed campaign with Kaimani and Finn, and I'm definitely gonna do that. Like, I can never have too much agility in my life, really.
Mm-hmm. As we enjoy saying, "Porque no los dos."
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and so we did get the backside too, right?
Yeah, so deck size is 30. Deck building options, rogue cards 0 to 5, tool cards level 0 to 4, and then neutral 0 to 5.
Tools.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wouldn't have predicted that for the backside.
Yeah. A little bit more. Deck building requirements, grappling hook, Agent Fletcher, and one basic weakness. That's obviously the SIG and the weakness. Then bonus experience. You begin the campaign with 5 additional experience. Does not affect the number of weaknesses you must take in standalone mode.
Ooh.
Yeah.
I'll say I really don't think Kaimani needs the 5 XP, but I'm not going to argue with it.
Yeah.
I'm not going to argue with it at all. I'm trying to do a quick search on tools to see if there's anything like enticing
Fingerprint
that jumps
kit?
out at me.
Sure.
I
Sledgehammer.
mean, I suppose you're probably not like going hard with intellect with Kaimani though.
Probably not. But I mean, like flashlight, bring it down to 2, or bring it down by 2.
Yeah, okay, but she could take flashlight before the tool thing.
Oh, right. Yes. I just got, what do you call it? Tunnel visioned on tools.
Riot Whistle is a tool, funnily enough.
Okay.
So like in multiplayer, if you want to like peel someone off so you can do the initial evade for free. What else is a tool?
Yeah, because Kaimani kind of gets Riot Whistle once they're evaded anyway, so.
Yeah. Fire extinguisher. There's some evade tricky things with that. Gravedigger shovel. If you're playing solo, that's a good way to grab a clue. Pocket telescope. Take a look. Yeah, there's a lot. Sledgehammer level 4.
Chainsaw is a tool.
Yeah.
Oh. Oh my.
I mean, I'm not sure if that really fits in the way I would build their deck, but
Yeah. I mean,
Interesting to
Mariner's
think about.
Compass. If you need to investigate Mariner's Compass,
Sure.
it's pretty good.
And I'm sure with that kind of deck building access, I was gonna say Edge of the Earth, but Scarlet Keys will probably have some tools in there, I bet.
Speaking of tools, Frank and Peter, they recently previewed the Tool Belt, a neutral card that's coming out in the Scarlet Keys, and that has some tool synergy where you can basically, essentially store tools in your body slot. That might be interesting to see what you can do with tools in that sense.
Every time we make a Frank and Peter joke, like I initially laugh, but then I'm like, there are people who don't see us interact outside of the podcast, and they are often confused.
Yeah, they're just like, whoa, such outright aggression.
We're just like, hang on.
I mean, there is a blood feud for a reason.
That escalated quickly.
We do have
All right.
podcast battles and back alleys for sure.
Yeah.
Snapping fingers and everything.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's the West Side Story battle. So their weakness, Agent Fletcher, is an enemy. 2 combat, 3 health, 3 agility, humanoid, coterie, and detective. Alert, hunter, prey, Kimani Jones only. I love that. I love when it's only. While Kimani Jones is evading Agent Fletcher, reduce their intellect value to 0. And then hits for 1 and 1.
All right, fair enough. Played by Aaron Eckhart, by the way.
Oh yeah.
Just that jaw and cheek line does it for me for some reason.
I gotta look at the picture. Okay. I don't think the weakness is that bad.
I think it's absolutely fine.
I think in general.
Yeah, so why does it reduce intellect?
Because
Just to block slip away or something like that?
no, so that they can't use their ability, like their special ability,
Oh,
like the succeeding by. It makes it harder.
Just makes it harder,
guess.
yeah.
Yeah,
But
sure.
but in Rogue, it's pretty easy to get your agility. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
if you just pop in one of those allies that boost your agility, you're rocking 6. So not a huge deal.
Well-
I don't know.
No, guys, it reduces their intellect
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
to 0.
Right, but
Am I
Kamani
missing the ability?
Jones is you add their intellect
Oh,
to the
yep,
agility
you added
test.
there. Okay,
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, so it's.
I swear,
it's,
we read this card 5 minutes ago, but you know, I couldn't be bothered to remember that.
Yeah, so it's and the grappling hook. There's a lot of different weird ways that you think you can use it because it's 3 different
Yeah.
actions from that list in any order. It does take a double action, but I guess
So,
the interesting part there is it is basic actions and not. So you can't use like, oh, I'm going to use a evade event or something. It has to be the base action, but still, it's good.
And grappling hook, for anyone who hasn't seen it, 3 cost asset, intellect, agility, wild icon, item, and tool. Kamani Jones deck only. Action performed using grappling hook. Do not provoke attacks of opportunity. Then double action, exhaust the grappling hook. Take up to 3 different basic actions from the following list in any order. Engage, evade, investigate, or move. If you investigate, use your agility instead of intellect. Takes up a hand slot. Do you think that this grappling
pretty
hook is the reason that we have the set symbol is a grappling hook?
Probably.
Because I mean, yeah, because it kind of looks like. I mean, I assume there's not very many different looks of grappling hooks, but I could be incorrect.
No, that definitely looks like a grappling hook.
I forgot that this thing has you ignore attacks of opportunity too, and investigate with your agility.
Yeah.
This is like something that you really want early, like hard mulligan for.
Yeah, and you can grab it with backpack.
Probably gonna have to do that.
Yeah.
Seems pretty good.
Yep.
All right. Well, that moves us on then to what we're doing, right?
Oh yeah. Do we have a couple cards that people might want to see?
It's possible that we're holding out, and you know, we should probably stop doing that at a certain point.
Maybe we should just wait till next episode.
Make them wait.
That's right. All right, so let's start. Sorry, I'm just pulling it back up here. Grizzled it is.
All right. I just read 4 cards, but I will read a 5th, and I don't even care.
Well, you're red. It's fine.
It's true. Grizzled is a survival level 0 skill. Has a wild icon. It's innate and developed. Ooh, innate, so Silas can take it. Also because it's red. Customizable. When you purchase Grizzled, choose and record 2 traits on its upgrade sheet. If this is a skill test on or against an encounter card, including fighting, evading, or parlaying, Grizzled gains 2 wild icons for each of the chaos traits that encounter card possesses. So,
Okay.
All right. So triple wild on ones where it matches the trait. It's pretty good.
Seems pretty good, and you know that's most campaigns have like an enemy type you want to target.
Or encounter cards. I mean, like Hex,
Sure.
Curse. Yeah.
Yeah.
Pax says
Absolutely.
Elite. Yep. Yeah, you sure can.
Oh, you can. Okay, well that seems pretty good. Okay. And as Justin pointed out before we started recording, this is for you Bloodborne fans. This is just like straight up Augur of Ebrietas happening for us. It's wicked art. Love it.
Oh yeah, that thing.
Sure.
All right. Well, hey, I believe Scott, I heard you say the word customizable. Did I not?
Sure did. So, Grizzled, on the back, we have Traits Chosen, and it has 2 blank lines. And the first upgrade costs 1 XP, and it's Specialist, choose another trait. So, another blank line. Next upgrade is 2 XP, Specialist, choose another trait. For 3 XP, Nemesis. If this is a skill test on or against an enemy with the chosen trait and the test is successful, you may attach Grizzled to that enemy. Reduce the difficulty of tests on or against that attached enemy by 1. That's neat. 4 XP, Mythos Hardened. If this skill test is on a treachery with a chosen trait and the test is successful, you may add both Grizzled and that treachery to the victory display. That is beautiful.
Resolve them deep.
Yeah. And then 5 XP, always prepared. After you draw an encounter card with the chosen trait, return 1 copy of Grizzled from your discard pile to your hand, max once per round.
Ooh, interesting.
So after you, there's some questions about it in the chat there.
I was
Always
about to
prepare.
say,
After you draw an
like,
encounter card
how
with
much would you
chosen trait, return 1 copy. Of it to
I'd
your
be a
hand.
little leery of
So,
spending a
yes,
bunch
it's
of
a constant
XP
effect, I
into a
guess.
skill compared
I mean,
to like
it's essentially like a
asset,
reaction.
considering it's
We were
feel
given
like one-time
actual
use
rules
things, but
language
then
for the
you get
customizable
always
cards.
prepared
Have we
and you
talked
can
about
just
that
keep
on the
recurring
podcast yet?
that.
Ooh, you know what? I'm not sure we have.
That makes
Should we?
Yeah.
I mean, because we kind of think we know how a lot of these things work, but this is our first customizable card, so probably worth mentioning. So I'll just kind of run through the bullet points here. By spending experience points, each customizable card can be custom tailored. Okay, so some of these are like straight up bullet points, like elevator pitch points. So each customizable card starts at level 0, has a separate sheet. Unless otherwise specified by a card effect, an investigator can only mark checkboxes on an upgrade sheet before or after a scenario when they are upgrading their deck or purchasing new cards. Spending 1 point of experience allows an investigator to mark 1 checkbox on each of their cards' upgrades. So I think we always assumed that, but confirmed now. Let's see here. A customizable card's level is equal to half the total number of checkboxes marked on its upgrade sheet, rounded up. So for cards that target cards of a specific level, I guess that's how you calculate that. Interesting.
Specifically for deck building too, right? Like your off class, like you can have a level up to level 2, so you can have 4 XP into a customizable card.
Oh, so it caps you on that based on class. I didn't even think about that. That's way more important. Okay.
Yeah.
Right on.
Also, like what's it? Scrounge for supplies. Grab a level 0 card back from your discard pile. So stuff like that.
Won't work on customizables.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they will until you customize them. The whole point of the card, yeah. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess. So I guess then that ties into the next one. An upgrade sheet cannot have more than a total of 10 checkboxes marked. So it caps out at 10 because that means it would raise its level to 5. Spending experience points on 1 or more upgrades for a customizable card already in an investigator's deck is considered to be upgrading for the purposes of card effects.
Oh, that's good for.
So that's really good for like down the rabbit hole.
Yes. Yeah.
And other similar things.
Yeah. And what's the mystic one where you upgrade spells? You get 1.
Arcane
trauma?
research.
Yeah, that's the one.
Arcane studies is the asset.
Man, there's so many
non-permanent
arcane
asset.
things. Yeah.
I know it's purple. What are you gonna do?
Yep.
Spending 1 or more experience on a customizable card's upgrade sheet is permanent and cannot be refunded. During gameplay, upgrade sheets are placed out of play, so they can be referenced and are considered to be in play. You can also download them and print them from fantasyflightgames.com at some point, inevitably.
That's one of my favorite parts. So you can just print out a bunch, and you don't have to like mark up actual cards. So
Yes. There will, I'm sure we're going to see solutions for that in particular.
So
right,
grizzled.
cool. So grizzled.
I saw someone, Jack Shandy. I'm so glad I can finally dump 10 XP into a skill card. Yeah, I mean, man, that bringing it back, the always prepared, that is really good. Yeah.
I feel like that's like mostly what you get it for, right?
I think so. Like, I feel like if you really know a campaign, you get always prepared, and then both specialists, you have, that's 8 XP. So essentially a 4 XP thing. But, like, I mean, the amount of times you're going to just commit 3 wild to tests, that's insane.
And then continue to get it back.
Yeah.
It's really good. And let's see, you're always prepared in 1 specialist, and Min can still take this, right?
No, Min can't take.
Oh,
Can't
she's
take
like
with
only a level
yeah.
2, right?
Yeah, so you can't take always prepared with Min, unfortunately.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
They got
Sorry.
me.
She can take Mythos Hardened though.
That's true.
The victory point tuck away.
Yeah, that's interesting. Okay, so like as people have been talking about in chat, and as you noted, the idea of pouring that much experience, or even like more than 2 experience, honestly, into a skill is something I don't consider doing very often. That recursion makes it very, very spicy, though.
Yeah, I can see myself easily spending 8 XP on this. Always prepared in the double specialist, and then you just pass any test you want. The Mythos throws at you. Yeah.
It's pretty fantastic.
Definitely Silas could get a lot of use out of this for sure. I think the other thing I could think of is maybe like Nemesis uses.
Yeah, just dog an enemy with it for a while. Point of interest with always prepared, though, as I'm thinking through this, it says after you draw an encounter card with a chosen trait. So if you do this to help yourself with a treachery, it's not going to help you on the one you draw. That just puts it back in your hand. Right?
I don't know. I think it does work that way. I think you might be able to, like, after you draw, but before you resolve it.
I mean, I'd be happy for it to be the way it works.
Yeah. Yeah, I'll get back to you. I'm sure maybe there's some rules aficionados in the chat, but I would personally read that as you draw it, and then it comes back to your hand, and then you do the run revealed part of the card. So
wouldn't that be when you draw?
When is before you draw. So
interesting.
You would draw it, so you have drawn it. Oh yeah, when. Yeah, I think Phileon's right. I think this is after you. Yeah, I'm not sure. I think it might be what you're thinking, Sean, where it's after the one you just did. You can't commit it to the one you just drew, I guess. So
which is unfortunate. So it like really wants you to use it on enemies, I guess.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting. Some cool stuff there, though.
Yeah, I like this a lot.
And again, just like straight up, someone being like, "Hey, elite."
Yeah.
Like. That's a good trait to pick, it turns out.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. If you like combine this with, if you somehow combine this with like Nemesis as like a boss tech type thing. I don't know how heavily you need to attack against bosses, but if there's a particular one that you think is going to be trouble, you could do, and then like attach it to them, and you could get 2 copies potentially on that same boss and really make it easier to do anything to them.
I mean, how many monsters are you going to hit with monster or humanoid? Like, there's some really broad traits. Mm-hmm. And hex, curse. Yeah.
Cultist.
Oh man, the templating for customizable is like messing with my head. It's not like the little filled in semicircle, like with, cards that don't have a level.
Mm-hmm.
It's like you can see through to the innards of the card.
Oh yeah. There's no level thing. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Cool thing too is Grizzle gains 2 wild for each of the chosen traits. So if you have like elite humanoid and you're fighting an elite humanoid, it's 5 wild. Like, that's insane. So. Yeah.
Interesting.
And Thoth brings up too 3 wilds against like half the encounter decks or half the encounter cards in a campaign. Like that alone, like at level 0, this is really good. If you know what,
putting in like 1 token territory in most things.
Yeah, like if you're walking into the what's it called, TCU Circle and Done, and you write down Hex, like Hex and Witch or Silver Twilight, like you're gonna deal with a lot of the Mythos cards. So
I mean, humanoid covers both Silver Twilight and the Witches.
There you go. Hex and humanoid. There you go. Done. Road to Easy Street.
It does. Fantastic. So yeah, I'm sure more to come on Grizzled. This seems like one that there's gonna be really specific uses that people tell stories about.
Mm-hmm.
All right, then let's move on from there. Ian, you want to do the next one?
I sure do. The next card is a rogue level 0 event, 2 cost, double agility icon, trick trait, fast. Did I say the name? Quick getaway. Fast. Play when an enemy attacks you. Evade. Attempt to evade the attacking enemy. If you succeed, cancel that enemy's attack. Yeah, so this is like the rogue dodge, I guess.
Yeah.
Or what's the mystic thingy that cancels the attack? I can't remember that card's name. I can see the art.
Hypnotic Gaze?
Yes, Hypnotic Gaze.
Also a great Rita card. trick trade.
Yep.
Like as soon as I saw this, I was like,
sure
oh,
is.
oh, this is a Rita card. Why doesn't Rita have 0 to 2 rogue? Really?
What? Enemies don't attack Rita. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
They don't get that chance. Yeah, however, like picking this off of an attack of opportunity is particularly nice because it doesn't specify enemy phase like some effects do. So
Yeah.
that's fun.
Thoth does mention in that this art brief. He's like, this is the third or fourth card with this art brief of like person in car driving away from things chasing them. Like what's the one that Nick always used to like where when an enemy attacks you, cancel that attack, you get an attack of opportunity, you get +2 on your next skill test.
Narrow escape.
Yes, narrow escape. And then there's another
It's
one.
got very, very similar energy to Narrow Escape.
Yeah.
This is basically like they gave the art brief to someone else.
Yeah. Oh, daring maneuver. That's the other one. Yep.
That's the one that makes you succeed by 2, right?
Yeah, if you succeed, you succeed by more.
By 2 more, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh man, it is like so similar. Well, kind of, yeah. That one's a car driving away. Quick getaway seems nice though. Like I really like it.
So outside of, I mean, I'm just trying to think like, I mean, there's a billion bonuses that Rogue gets from evading enemies. I don't know why I was even forming that question. But like, who else do you think looks at this pretty hard? Do you think this is just like a general purpose Rogue card for anyone who's got passing agility, or do you think this specifically plays into something else?
I kind of feel like this is general.
Yeah.
Like I mean, and the double agility icons too
Mm-hmm.
are amazing. So, Winnie, probably.
Sure. God, the more I look at this, the more I think you want this to be on an attack of opportunity, right? Because if you do this during the enemy phase, then they're just going to ready up again during upkeep. I know the phases of this game I've been podcasting about for 6 years, guys. I know those words. They'll ready during upkeep, and then it's like, okay, I paid 2 for effectively dodge. So I feel like, I mean, the double icons are nice too. I don't know.
Which, I mean, in some cases you might need that just to be a basic dodge that, like, I think this card shows what this game does well, which is like repeat similar effects between classes but still maintain the class identity. Like, of course, Guardian has the strongest and like cheapest straightforward enemy cancel because they should, because they're the class that's supposed to be like just toe to toe with enemies. So this one's a little bit more expensive, but you do get the evade in addition to the canceling the attack potentially, but then you also have to pass the test. So there's kind of some pluses and minuses there, but yeah, I think it feels like more general utility card. I've been trying to think of particular investigators or like weird combos, but I think it's just kind of serves that general purpose, especially with the opportunity attacks.
So, this also doesn't say non-elite.
No, it doesn't. Yeah.
That's true.
So, that's an enemy management thing. Also,
so your rogue gets hit first by a massive enemy.
Yes.
And
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. I'm in, baby. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
So I think this can be general purpose, especially with someone like 5 agility. Like this just seems really nice, especially in solo, or if you're the enemy management person. Awesome. Or it can be a super tech card on, oh, the boss is a massive enemy that's hard to deal with. Okay, fine. Like this deals with it. So, yeah. Oh, also, the card number 69. Nice.
Nice.
I think the only weird combo that I could think of is like skids. If you could use like toe to toe, make the enemy attack you, and then I'm trying to remember how toe to toe is worded. Yeah, so it's just the cost to perform the attack. The enemy attacks you, and then you use quick getaway to cancel that attack. So that still counts as satisfying the cost, though, right? It made the attack, and you're just, I'm trying to think of that would be that weird.
I mean, it
case.
made the attack. It didn't land the
so
attack.
but I don't know if that.
I'm sure that's wrong.
Yeah, I don't know if it falls into that weird thing of like canceling the cost, but if it doesn't, it would be interesting because then you could have them attack you, you cancel the attack, evade them, and then you still get the automatic success damage from toe to toe.
It wouldn't surprise me if that's considered canceling it. But
Yeah,
a boy can dream.
because the cost is the chosen enemy making an attack. I guess you are canceling the enemy's attack. You're not like canceling some supplementary
You're not canceling
part
the
of it.
damage.
Yeah, exactly. You're actually canceling.
I think that would be
yeah.
the difference.
So unfortunately, I don't think that works.
Yeah.
Oh well.
That was a fun mind
Yeah,
vacation, though.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so those are our the Scarlet Key. Sorry, my mind just couldn't pull the expansion name out of my brain. The Scarlet Keys preview cards.
Mhm.
Pretty fun. I'm really looking forward to customizable. I feel like it's going to have a very similar effect on my brain that like Versatile did, right?
Except, I don't know. Yes, but I think like Versatile offers a bunch of those choices, but I think very rarely is it worth it for a lot of things. Hot take here. Whereas customizable, like almost every customizable card I've seen, I'm like, wow, wow, there's some really interesting options here. So
That's fair. That's
Yeah.
fair. I'm talking more from the perspective of like imagining what decks can do.
yeah, that's fair enough. Yep.
Like Versatile just blows a lot of weird shit open. To be honest,
I still haven't delved
come
into.
back from Arkham DB some
I
days.
still haven't delved into Versatile. Yeah, because I think the customizable is a little bit more in my wheelhouse, and Versatile is like, I don't know. It's feels like too much to tackle sometimes.
Well, excellent. Well, thanks again, as always, to FFG for providing all us content creators some fun previews to preview. We have another one scheduled for later in the month on our Twitch channel. Is that right?
I think so.
Is that where we landed on that? Probably should have checked before I said anything.
I can check my calendar real quick, but you keep vamping. That's
No, we have events like right on our Discord now, like
oh,
like
yeah.
a real organization would.
Uh,
Yes,
August 25th.
That's the one.
Yep.
August 25th, 9 p.m. Central on our Twitch channel.
Nice.
And we will reveal the last couple of Scarlet Keys cards that we have. It's going to be great.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, boys, what do we have now?
The
I
main
suppose.
Tupac.
I suppose we're almost an hour in. That means it's time, possibly, for the main Tupac.
It's not the worst we've ever done.
Yeah, that's true. New format, be damned. All right, so spoiler alert for anyone who hasn't played the Edge of the Earth campaign. We are continuing our exhaustive review of the the scenarios. Tonight we're going to be talking about City of the Elder Things and Heart of Darkness? Heart of Madness. Heart of
Heart of
Madness.
Madness, yeah.
Heart of
That's the one.
Darkness is the
Yeah.
classic. But,
So-
yeah.
Okay, there we go. I'm like,
A great
so
book.
Spoiler alert. So, Ian, you so lovingly prepared our guide notes tonight. Why don't you take us through it?
Sure. So I couldn't remember whether we covered Interlude 2. I don't think we did, because I think we just stopped with the whatever that scenario is called. We're good at this. the mountain slopes one. Forbidden Peaks, that's what it's called. So Interlude 2, Endless Night, follows after that. And it does the same thing as the first interlude, where you can choose 3 people to talk to, or 4 if basically you had to find another way through the mountains. And one thing I discovered, because I didn't pay close attention to what all the people do, is they all do the same thing in each interlude, and I thought it switched up. But it doesn't. The only one who switches up each time is Ellsworth. Ellsworth is like your scout person, so Ellsworth will like change exactly what they scout from scenario to scenario. But everyone else pretty much does the same thing. Dyer removes Tekalili, Danforth extra cards, etc., etc. So you basically get to choose what you want. Like we mentioned last time, Kensler basically is the one you have to keep visiting over and over. to continue her loyalty mission or whatever. get to full loyalty by the end of it. So you can.
Yeah, you got to survive the suicide mission at the end.
Yep. Oh man, I'm imagining a cool like Mass Effect 2 style campaign where you gotta like build up the loyalty. Okay, that's a rabbit hole.
Okay, yes please, Ian, do that, please.
So let's do that. Generate some ideas for next Mythos Buster scenario. Are there any particular ones while we're here in the interlude of these that we might have talked about this last time, but worth talking about again? Any particular ones that you always hit up during the interludes?
Claypool every time. Remove that frost token. Yeet that
Claypool.
frost token from the bag.
I like Ellsworth. Like, I've visited Dire a couple times if Tekalili like really gets out of hand. I don't find it to be often, but I'll have the occasional bad scenario where it just popped off, and yeah, visiting Dire is pretty solid. Phileon. I too like visiting Elia, even though it's not always mechanically the right call.
It's
Oh, on you. You're the best, doggo.
It is always the right call. You shut up.
I feel like, yeah, I agree with you, Sean. It can depend on campaign whether Tekalili gets out of hand, but I feel like out of all things in Edge, Tekalili is the bane of my existence, so I often find myself visiting Dire. Just can't with the Tekalilis. And then the other thing that happens in this point, similar to Interlude 1, is you have the option of playing Fatal Mirage, but only if you have 3 or more dead at this point. So, kind of depends on how your campaign is.
About that. Can I tell a quick story about Edge?
Heck yes.
So last night, Justin and I and our friend Brian were playing Edge. And so we were playing Ice and Death Part 2. And we kind of got dumped on with weaknesses and enemies and Doom early in the game. So we spent like the first half of the game just scrambling to stabilize. But after that, we maintained, and we had to keep 2 of the campsites or the uncharted places unrevealed. We managed to get 1 more supply recovered. We got Danforth was our dude who was missing. We got him back. So we're like, okay, we got 2 turns left to get back to the camp and actually resign, because that one requires like the hard resign. So we're like, okay, cool. Well, we've cleared the board. Like, we're going to be totally fine. We've got movement tricks.
Totally fine. Yep,
Super
totally
solid.
fine.
Yep, absolutely. Nothing possibly could happen between hither and thither.
And we're all going to have a good time.
So sure enough, I forgot for a brief moment that Ancient Evils is in this scenario. Even though we had pulled 1 up to that point, so there were 2 left in the encounter deck, and the encounter deck was what, like 8-9 cards, Justin?
Yeah, I think that
So,
was the point that we locked eyes across the table.
Yeah, by
and
all rights,
realized.
we should have been way more worried than we were. And yeah, sure enough, Mythos rolls around. We draw one of the they're not cultists in this one. One of the explorers that comes in with Doom, and then Ancient Evils, and just like bang bang done. We got comboed out in our last turn.
Oh,
So, bringing it back here, what that means, and I didn't realize this until the Arkham Cards app like showed me our list of partners, but we were defeated when the agenda advanced and took a mental trauma, and all 3 of the partners we had with us at the time were also killed.
oh.
So that was a first for me. That was a first. That was a pretty big blow.
So you're saying that the Fatal Mirage is
We're gonna
full of opportunities.
We're going to have some very, very active Fatal Miraging for the next couple of interludes. Who did we lose? We lost Ellsworth was the one I was sad about.
We lost Cookie.
Cookie, and did you have Takata?
No, I was giving them a rest.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I have my campaign log literally right here. I'll find out later. But anyway, it was bad. It was bad, and I had forgotten that, like, just obviously if you get taken out by an enemy and defeated that way, that one stuck in my brain. But like you are defeated resolutions and stuff, it didn't. Yeah, I don't know. I didn't realize that all of them were dead, and they are. So, yeah.
That's what we get for leaving just enough actions to get out.
That's right. Yep. We were playing it close to the line, and the encounter deck just comboed us out.
Counter deck just rubbing its hands together at that point, just
Yeah.
waiting for the opportunity.
Well, we had accounted for ancient evils at that point after we'd had the knowing glance across the table. But then the enemy came out and was like, JK.
Sorry, y'all. I'm gonna let you finish.
By the way, I feel like if this Edge of the Earth was a movie, like Cookie would die in the movie for sure. Like that would
Every
be one of
time.
the partners that would die. Like he's
Every
that
time.
character in a movie, he will for sure die.
Absolutely.
Like the grizzled fighter type character.
And it's like right after you have the scene that one night where he like becomes a little bit human for a minute, and like you become sympathetic to his character. Next morning, he like definitely gonna die.
Yeah. Which, if I remember correctly, I think that happens in Fatal Mirage, doesn't it? If you kind of see like Cookie's backstory. I can't remember. We'll talk about it when we get to Mirage, but I'm pretty sure that
Well, and he would obviously die due to fire, and there'd be a joke about baking cookies. And
Wow.
Yeah.
it's just how it's going in the movie.
Yeah. He would have the dynamite and light it while the enemies are about to fall down on him while everyone runs away.
And he'd have a nice one-liner like, "Guess I gotta bake my cookie," or something.
That's right. And then
Yeah.
like before it actually blows, he has time to like pull out a cigar, put it in his mouth, and light it, and then the explosion happens.
Yeah.
You enemies can stick this in your oven.
This is. Oh, Lemongrad from chat. This is how cookie crumbles.
That's it. We're moving to Hollywood.
All right.
Becoming screenwriters. Let's do this.
Cut, print, check the gate. Let's go.
All right. New
Does
Someone have
Earth
Michael
newbie,
Bay's
we
number.
patron stretch goal. Okay.
Yeah.
Don't tempt our patrons because they'll actually do it, and then we'll have to make a freaking movie.
Yeah, no shit.
We've
We're
learned
not
our
prepared.
lesson.
All right.
All right,
Anyway,
so from
that's
the interlude, we make it to the actual scenario, which is City of the Elder Things. Unlike a couple of the other scenarios, this is just one part. There's not multiple parts, but it comes in 3 different flavors depending on how, depending on basically who's alive in your party. They basically vote, which is an interesting little mechanic.
Yeah.
Like whoever they divided them up into 3 different groups, and whatever group has the most people alive kind of determines where you go. I haven't really paid attention to whether there's one particular like path that I tend to go on more than others. I don't know if any of you have noticed.
I tend to enjoy the big blocky square layout. I find it easiest to maneuver.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah,
Yeah,
especially with the abilities on the actor agenda, whatever it is, with the clues.
Right. Yeah, because you can basically spend a clue to move to any location in the same row or column, or one per investigator, I think, probably.
Yeah, but you can warp up and down rows and columns, and since when it's a big square, there's more length and girth, I guess.
Sure.
It's
Easy there.
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so basically group 1 is like, I was trying to think about how to describe these, is the big blocky square, and then group 2 is like a pyramid shape, and then group or path 3 is like a kind of like a staircase, like cascades down. I feel like I get the group 2 pyramid more than the others. I don't think I get the big blocky square that much. It's all random happenstance depending on who's alive, really.
Yeah. I find the stairs are probably the worst as far as like maneuvering with the special things, but you don't get an Elder Thing token in the bag. So it's like, do you want to do a slightly harder layout and avoid a slightly harder bag for the rest of the campaign. So it's kind of a trade-off there.
It'll be an interesting Iron Man decision.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, although we don't really get to choose.
Yeah,
it just
like
depends on.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the.
Okay, you say
it's
that.
like a choice that's not a choice, but
You say that.
go on.
But like, if we're heading into, if we have a specific plan that we really want, we could like intentionally kill partners along the way to make sure that the groups are stacked.
Yeah.
Oh,
I'm not
man,
saying
I didn't
we
even
should.
consider that.
But
All
it's
you
a
have to do
thing
is
we
doom
could
out.
do.
We
That's
learned.
right.
Just throw some damage and horror on them, call it a day. Oof.
Well, and I
That's
think by
something to
this
think
point
about.
too, you are only at the end of this scenario is when you will finally for sure have at least 3 dead, so you can do Fatal Mirage.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're only guaranteed 2 dead by the start of City of Elder Things.
Yes. Yeah.
So, so we'd have to know like what we've randomly gotten, and then in the mountain scenario try and kill someone off specifically. Oh boy.
Yeah, it would be at that point that you have to try to. Yeah, it was interesting
tough.
when I was looking through this scenario, like you mentioned about the Elder thing, to see the differences. Because I think how I've experienced Edge of the Earth so far is I haven't been going into each campaign with the Iron Man approach of like, I just kind of go through and experience whatever
Same.
whatever
I
it
still do
throws
too.
at me.
Me too. Yep.
So then when I went through and looked, I was surprised by how much I thought it was just the map layout and a few minor things, but like the encounter sets are different. You don't get the Elder thing in Path 3. It changes like the acts in each version. The Act 1 and Act 2 are different in each of the Group 1, Group 2, Group 3. So it's I mean obviously you're doing the same thing in the scenarios, but there's quite a bit that's actually different there, which is interesting design there.
I think this goes to show another strength of the new delivery model, where it's an entire box, and so Maxine and her team have more leeway on how many cards they're going to use where. Like she said on one of the shows, I'm not sure if it was ours, I forget. Anyways, about
We'll pretend it was.
Yeah, sure. Forbidden Peaks was like very few encounter cards, right? Like it's like 6 locations and like 2 or 3 act and agenda cards. That would never work in the 60 card pack thing, but that leaves a lot more cards for something like City of the Elder Things, so you can get more variety and whatnot. So,
Before we delve more into the scenario proper, I wanted to mention, as part of the intro, you get the Frostbitten weakness if the Doctor Sinha is dead, and you get Possessed if Dyer is dead. So that's like a mechanic we've seen where you get a new weakness for your deck, but it depends on who's dead. And that kind of makes me think of a tangent question. It's a little bit of a tangent, but we talked about how the paths are different, and whether you get these weaknesses differs depending on who's dead. But it's interesting that in this campaign, there's a lot of variation in paths, but you don't have control over any of it because it depends on a random who's dead. And so I was just wondering, how do we feel about that? Do you like it? Do you not like that? Like, different paths, but you don't have control over which path you take.
So the part of me as a player that enjoys the narrative aspect and like the role playing feel loves that. It's uncontrollable variance in different permutations. The part of me that's going to like get emotionally invested in a plan for Iron Man is having other thoughts.
I love it in general because it forces my hand to adapt more. Otherwise, I would definitely be the type of person who would be like, well, here's the path I know. I like that. I don't get so much time to play Arkham, so I'm going to go down this route. But this forces me to see other content I wouldn't see.
yeah, I find, like as much as I talk about Iron Manning and stuff like this, it's really usually only Iron Man where I'm really gunning for a plan. I'd say 90% of the time I play Arkham, I'm just like, oh, I'll see what I can do. I'll decide in the moment, and
Aimless Arkham.
yeah, it's just whatever. I'll just go in and like, I'm like, oh, I kind of prefer this way, but I'll see how the scenario goes, right? I'm probably not playing like a super tuned out deck specific for that campaign. I mean, unless it's like Luke for Innsmouth, but you know what I mean? Like I just let things happen, and I love it because it forces that even more so, right? Like there's so much variety in this campaign. It's not like Carcosa with like 3 paths or Dunwich with 1.5 paths. You know, like this one is very wide
in a lot of different dimensions too.
Yeah, I kind of feel like I'm in a similar place to you all. It's interesting. Like, there's definitely that part of me that's just like the mechanics gamer part but I want to choose my path. But I think, because I mentioned before that with this campaign I kind of just let it carry me along with the story even more so than other campaigns, and I think I'm realizing it's because of this kind of random mechanic. But I think also, like, each Arkham campaign gives us a different flavor of horror, and Edge of the Earth is very much like the classic survival horror genre. And in that kind of story, like, you don't really get to choose what path you take. Like, people get killed and it changes your plan and you have to adapt to it. Like,
right.
You might
part of the horror is how out of control you are.
Yeah, like you might be in a zombie movie and you have a companion who's like this badass like military person or something, and then they get killed, and then suddenly you have to adjust your plan. No, you're not going to go straight into the heart of the zombies. Now you have to go take a side path or something. So I think that's kind of the story that Edge of the Earth tells. Like, it's not about choosing the right path. It's about you have to adapt to survive depending on random stuff that happens that you can't control.
And the different moments that just kind of organically happen, like, for instance, in our the campaign that we just started that I was just talking about with Justin and Brian, Brian is kind of met on the lore, so we gave him like a shorter version of what's happening. I think he's read at the Mountains of Madness at some point, though it had been long enough that he didn't remember details. But it was really fun because, you know, setting everything up. The one thing we did do in detail was like go through the partners, right? Because that's like an actual mechanic of the campaign.
That's the point.
Yeah. So like I did pull all of those out and be like, all right, this is this person and this is this, blah, 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 blah. So when, you know, that was all laid out and he kind of got the dynamic, we were talking to Dyer and Danforth in the opening prologue, and he's like, oh, okay, so like how long until he says, all right, I'm coming with you? And sure enough, at the end of the prologue, he's like, all right, I'm coming with you. And then Brian goes, yep, and he's going to die immediately. And then sure enough, in the plane crash, we fucking pulled Dyer, and like Justin and I were dying because it was like narratively so perfect. And also Brian called it, which made it hilarious.
Yeah, I love those little stories that come out. Like, I had a recent campaign, I can't remember which one, but where Dyer died initially in that plane
Boy,
crash,
he is aptly
similarly.
named, is he not?
Yeah, but then one person who went missing after that was Danforth, and I'm like, that's perfect. He went wandering in the wilderness because he's so distraught, and like, you know, bad stuff happened. So it's perfect.
Ian, guess who went missing? And we just went and got last night. It rhymes with Stanforth.
I love
That's
it.
hilarious.
So,
yeah,
okay.
it makes perfect sense that the two people who are coming with that got fucked up last time are the first ones to lose it when they come back. Like, it's fantastic.
Let's add it to our movie script. Just writing itself down.
That's right.
All right, back to City of the Elder thing. So, good discussion. In the actual scenario, there's a bunch of keys. There's a key on every location, essentially. You got to grab the keys, and depending on which versions of the axe you have to gather a pair of certain keys. It might be the cultist or the elder thing, etc., depending. And as Scott and I were talking about, you can use clues to zip ahead, to either like zip ahead in your row or column. I think I said one clue earlier, but I think that's the one that's like 3 clues, and then
that's 3 clues. Yep.
Yeah, the one clue is to just like peek at a location.
Right. Yeah.
Correct.
Too. Yeah.
personally love the way the exploration and the map works in this scenario. I reserve the right to change my answer when I get through this next campaign that Justin and I are playing, but I believe at this point that City of the Elder Things is my favorite part of this campaign.
Wow. Okay.
It's
It-
really
'cause
good.
It hits similar notes to like oh shoot, is it the Pallid Mask, which is the one that's down in the catacombs in Carcosa?
Phantom?
No,
Phantom of
Phantom's
Truth?
in Paris.
I think it is Pallid Mask. I believe.
Is it Pallid
Oh,
Mask?
yeah, it is Pal Mask. Yeah, sorry. Because
Yeah.
we go... Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so it has kind of notes like that. The variable map is cool. The randomized locations that kind of connect to each other, and you have, just like every time you play it, it is its own puzzle. And I kind of love that about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the thing I appreciate about it is another big map scenario in this campaign. But the fact that you can use the clues to zip, which I do a
Yes.
lot, helps a
Yes.
lot, particularly in solo for sure. But I think in any player count, because part of the mechanics of the scenario is like you need to get clues off locations to get the keys, because it's pretty much how keys usually always work, I think, where you have to clear the location of clues
Yeah.
to get the key. But then you don't necessarily need to spend those clues to like advance the act or anything. So you just have those clues to pay for the movement or scouting effect. So you can do it quite often in a scenario, which helps to mitigate the map being so big.
Yeah, you're so right, because like the fact that you don't have to use those clues for anything else makes it so purely like a traversal puzzle, and it's just so cool for that.
Does anyone else get health potion syndrome in this scenario? Where you're like,
I might
I'm
need
not
it
go-
later.
I might need it later. I'm not going to spend it now. And like you get near the end of the scenario and you're like, oh, I have 14 clues I could have spent to make my life way easier.
It depends
that
on how
happens-
much mobility I'm running otherwise. In my
I s-
mystics, I'm like, please, I need the clues to move. I've got...
I swear to God, every single time I play this, and every single time at the beginning of the scenario, I'm like, okay, don't get health potion syndrome. Just spend them when you need them, Scott. Okay, you can do this. And I get halfway through the scenario, I'm like, I haven't spent a single clue yet. And I'm just like, yeah.
I might need them later.
Yeah. What if... Yeah.
I definitely did that at first, and then I think I've learned just spend it. Just
Yeah.
whenever you can see. I was even playing a recent campaign with Luke and Daniela, and you would think, oh, Luke doesn't need to do it, but it's actually helpful because he can move to revealed, but not ones that haven't been revealed. So you use the clues to open up the map, and then Luke can use his ability to just zip around everywhere.
Can
And see,
Luke...
Oh, go ahead, Sean.
I was just gonna say, can Luke like step into his party box and step out into any location except for the one that's locked?
Any revealed location.
It's any revealed. Okay, it's connected to each revealed location. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Justin.
Oh, what I was gonna say is, it's not quite the Luke question, but I'm a little nervous to come back and play this one, and I hope it remains as good as it was the first time through. Because I've only played it the once, and it was fun to zip around. I was playing as Monty.
Yeah, you were playing Jack to begin with.
Oh,
so-
God.
with I believe Janae at that point, and just moving stuff
Yep.
around to make it easy, and we
Oh, my God.
and we got through. I mean, I think we had basically everything opened up, and we needed maybe 3 more actions to just crush it, but then the deck said, nah, get out. But it was super fun. But then even with the added scenario mobility, I'm excited to try it again, but also dreading that it's going to be such a vastly different experience that I'll be like, oh, it's okay.
So what you're telling me is you inadvertently completely teched for this scenario
I mean,
from the beginning. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, Justin carried me through that entire campaign, y'all. To be fair, like I did my best to make my Daniela kind of flexy, but it was my first time building her. It wasn't great. I'd love to see like a movement animation from our campaign, because it would have just been like a green blur whizzing around the like slow moving blue boulder that was Daniela.
It was fun, and that was when we basically Iron Manned it day one. So that was so awesome.
Good times.
Nice.
Good times.
That sounds fun. Need to figure out how to do that for Scarlet Keys.
You're invited.
Um, the scenario interlude, there is a scenario interlude in this scenario, and another one bites the dust in this scenario, which brings you up to 3 minimum at this point. Although if it's Danforth, his body explodes into clues on the way out. If you control him.
Yeah.
Just like in Scott Pilgrim.
Yeah.
The old clue pinata Danforth.
Okay,
like-
jokes aside, I love that this is Danforth's like scripted death. It's so perfect for like what his character is to the original story and to this campaign. Really cool like touch, I think.
Yeah, I love when they throw in these little like special bonuses if certain people are killed. I think a lot, and Forbidden Peaks is the one where like if it's Cookie, then he like shoots them on the way out. So
Yeah.
So essentially the ending or the kind of climax of the scenario is you're just trying to get the right keys to unlock the final location, and then you just need to get to the end. Although there is so that's pretty straightforward, but there's the opportunity along the way. There's quite a few locations that say if you control these 2 keys, then it'll give you some beneficial effect. So
Yeah.
this is a scenario that I don't find it too super hard. It's not super easy either, but it's one that I tend to take my time with and get as much as I can to try to like set myself up for the final scenarios.
Yeah, I do as well. And I just like, I kind of see like what keys are showing up and what's going to be like, what do I find inadvertently? And is there anything I really want to see, like search out? But yeah.
Yeah, and there's certain effects that let you like swap keys between locations, which can help with that. But yeah, it's pretty much a game of like sometimes I look at where keys are and I'm like, nope, not gonna do that one. Just prioritizing the ones that either seem super useful or seem like attainable without going backtracking too much.
Because you got your objective ones, and then you've got ones that just like do cool things. Like there's one that removes a frost token. And other cool things that
Yeah.
aren't coming to mind right now.
I think isn't there like next scenario you start with more resources or something?
Ooh, maybe.
I forget. There's a bunch of them. But
Yeah, so go ahead.
I was just going to ask if anyone else had as poor luck with the Stone Bridge location as I do. Now, the 3 times I've played it, the stone bridges have always ended up so close to one another that they're like pointless to use.
Yeah.
These are the ones that connect to each other regardless of where they are on the map.
Mm-hmm.
My luck has not been great with those yet.
Yep.
Similarly, I rarely find myself getting good use out of those.
You guys are also getting stonewalled.
Oh, I see what you did
Don't.
there.
That was
even.
your
That
that was your sole reason for bringing it up, was it?
no.
I've actually
that's why
had
I'm
great
saying
luck.
That deserves no reaction.
I'm so proud of you because I was unmuting to say the same thing and you beat me to it.
But yeah, the way the locations come out really affects, in my experience, the puzzle that you play. I'm trying to think. The version 1, I think I've gotten 2 out of the 3 times, and then Justin, you and I had version 3, right? The stair step
Yeah, we had the steps.
in our original, I think.
Correct.
So I don't know. Do we think that one is like definitively harder than any of the others? Like ultimately,
I think one's the easiest. Quite
one's
honestly,
the easiest.
just because you can move.
No, sorry, I
around with
meant
the
one
clues.
of them, not necessarily.
Stair step. I
Yeah.
think.
One. Okay. 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's worth talking about these act differences, because this is what surprised me, is how different they are. So part 1, the big blocky square, the Act 1 shuffles in Shoggoths, and the Terror of the Stars arrives, so you have to deal with the Terror of the Stars. And then Act 2, you get a chance to heal a bunch of stuff, damage, horror, and trauma. So that's part 1. The Path 2, Creatures of the Ice get shuffled in. Those are all the weird, like, I don't even know what to call those creatures. like inky
Oh,
shadowy
the Eidolon creatures?
Yeah. And then you also add a frost token. And then Act 2 for the second path, you get a chance to remove all the Tekalili. So I like that. I don't like adding the frost token, really. And then version 3, path 3, Shoggoths get shuffled in. But then each player has to draw an encounter card when Act 1 advances. And then Act 2 for this third path, you get a chance to remove all Elder Things from the Chaos Bag. And then Shoggoths and Elites actually defeat Elder Things when they enter the same location. So there's a little bit of a war going on there. So looking at those, it's kind of all over the place. I'm not sure which one is the worst or the best.
I mean, I do like the fact that, like, you're having like, I know this is getting back to the original point we were making, but where you have like a group debate and the act kind of just plays into what you find based on what each group wants to do.
It's hard. I don't know. Like, and you also combine in the shape of the map too. Like, I think that varies the difficulty of the scenario, and so to combine that with the act, the agenda stuff, like, I don't know. They seem relatively balanced. I think maybe the pyramid one is harder, but I don't
think there's a clear winner, at least.
Yeah, there's not one sticking out where I'm like, oh, it's this, right? It's it's balanced enough that I'm like, I don't know. So, which I think is a testament to the balance of it.
Yeah, like, because even if we could choose, like, for Iron Man or something, I don't know if, based on these different effects, whether it would be an easy choice. I think it would be more like what we initially talked about with just, like, the map shape more than anything compared to these. I guess the only thing that stands out is part 1 is more like scenario-specific effects. Like, you got to deal with the Terror of the Stars. You can heal some damage and horror within the scenario. And trauma, which I guess applies to other scenarios. But, like, path 2, you add a frost token, which is, like, continues through the campaign. But you also remove all Tekalili, which helps for the next scenario. So, and then version 3 is a little mix of both.
And so I don't know if we covered it, but 1 is you go to the heart of the city, 2 you go up the mountain ridge, and 3 you follow the trail left behind by whatever massacred the Elder Thing. So I assume that's the Shoggoths, right? Or am I thinking the original story is the Shoggoths? It might be the Eidolon. I don't remember.
It could be, yeah. I think path 3 is like the battle between those. But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I like that because, like, you go inside and remove frost. You go outside and, like, you're not as close to all the enemies, so Tekalili goes away. Like, it's, I don't know. I'm discovering a lot of these things as we talk about them, so I'm just remarking. That's all.
The main stories that comes to us as a surprise to us all.
Yeah, the 3 options for spending other keys, it's based on the act. And it's 2 cultists. You can heal a damage, a horror, and a trauma. And then the other one, number 2, is the tablet. Is each investigator searches their deck for a Tekalili weakness and shuffles it back into the Tekalili deck and their deck. And then number 3 is spend 2 Elder Things, remove each Elder Thing from the Chaos Bag. So I think number 3 is the best.
God, those Elder Things are nasty, dude.
Yeah.
Removing Elder Things tends to always be good.
Yep.
Removing all Tekalili can be really good depending on campaign rather. Like, I just finished up a campaign where I was rocking a ridiculous amount of Tekalili in my deck, and this is a solo game. So, and
oh my god,
in that kind of case where you have like 11 or 12 Tekalili in your solo deck, that would be could be a bit of a lifesaver.
Okay, so the campaign that I'm running by myself is my 2-handed campaign. I think I mentioned it last time. I'm playing Leo and Mandy. And I can't for the life of me ever convince myself to just be boring and do 30 card Mandy. I recognize that it's the right call most of the time, but God help me, I can't do it. So I went with a 40 deck Mandy. So 40 deck Mandy. Lots of search abilities. I shelled out for Tabooed Rook because YOLO. but it's a 2-player campaign, and it did really well in the ice and death scenarios. So it got all 6 of the supplies. So between taking 4 out of the 6 supplies and then the Tekalili cards, my Mandy deck is so fat right now. It is obscene.
That's
but
awesome.
man, Rook will clear some Tekalilis, I'll tell you what.
I still have to take Patrice through an Edge of the Earth campaign just because Tekalilis.
Yes. Just like
Yeah.
burn through them.
Yeah. Especially all those treacheries are like, choose a player at the table, give them a Tekalili. She's like, me.
Shuffle it into any player's deck.
Yeah.
Oh, Patrice.
So the resolutions of this scenario are pretty straightforward. If you're defeated or doomed out, you get guided to the hidden tunnel instead of finding itself. But everything else is pretty much the same as if you had won. And if you win, you get the R1, you find the hidden tunnel, but everything else is the same. So the only thing that varies for success versus defeat is whether you're guided to the hidden tunnel or you find it yourself. So, which is nice.
It just changes whether you get to visit with 3 or 4 people in the interlude.
Mm-hmm.
That's the...
Yep.
Yeah.
So that brings us to interlude 3, the final night, which, again, similar to what was just mentioned, you can visit 3 or 4 people depending on what you got in City of Elder Things. Same effects for all the partners, except Ellsworth gives you his specific thing of scouting the Forked Passage if you visit Ellsworth.
Seems good.
Yeah. And that brings us to...
And of course, Kensler gives you the final bump in her situation, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The loyalty quest or whatever you said.
That's right.
Yeah. So
Make sure she survives the suicide mission.
Yeah. you need to have visited her each time, and so if you haven't, then there's not really any point doing it now.
Don't bother.
Yeah.
She actually stops you. I don't know if you know this, but she legitimately, like, if you don't go the first time, the second and third time, she's like, "What? Don't waste my time. What are you doing here?"
Yeah.
Yeah. You basically bungled the loyalty at that point. There's nothing you can do to get it back. Very touchy that way. So that brings us to the finale of Edge of the Earth, which is the Heart of Madness, parts 1 and parts 2. So there's a bunch of like intro stuff. Again, depending on who's alive, you might get physical or mental trauma. The miasmic crystal, one of those early supplies, plays a part in the intro here with whether you get a frost token or not, depending on whether you recovered it. And if you scouted the forked passage with Ellsworth, you can look at 2 ancient facility locations when you start. And an interesting decision here, as the final part of the intro, you can choose to skip or not to skip part 1 of Heart of Madness.
Such a weird choice.
Have you ever skipped part
No.
1? Right?
Why? Hey, I'm gonna sit down and play part 1 of Heart of Madness, and I'm done. Like,
That's like going to the ship at the end of the Fifth Element and deciding, like, no, I'm not going to take any of the stones. That reference was for 5 people. I hope you enjoyed it.
5 people, 5 elements. It all lines up.
I'm trying to think of a time where I would skip. Like, why?
Yeah. Well, I was going to say the only thing I can think of is I have had the experience, not with Heart of Madness, because I've never skipped part 1, but probably talk more about it when we talk about Fatal Mirage eventually, is like I chose to play that, and then like my Tekalili situation was great before that, and that scenario the Tekalili spiraled out of control and it continued for the rest of the campaign. So I'd say the only reason to skip things in this campaign in general is if there is a chance when you play additional scenarios in this campaign that you might rack up Tekalilis.
Or trauma. I don't know. If you get knocked
Or
out.
trauma.
I mean,
or
yeah,
frost
failure's always an
tokens.
option.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's a few ways this campaign can throw stuff in that makes it harder, like frost tokens and Tikkalili. So,
But can you ever see yourself being in a situation, even with those factors, accounted for, where you're like, no, I'm just gonna go straight to part 2? Like, I can't imagine any factors that would push you to actually do that, because having the are they runes or the keys, whatever it is that we charge up, the seals.
Seals, yeah.
Having the seals charged up makes a big difference in the second one.
Yeah.
yeah, as we'll talk about in like part 2, the seals have some pretty strong effects, so they can help a lot. I guess if you were just confident, like super confident in your deck, and you think you can just bowl into part 2, but I don't know. Generally, when given the chance to play more Arkham or less Arkham, I'm probably gonna choose more Arkham. I don't know.
Yeah, thank you. That was good. Like, I think we talked about this back in like Ice and Death. It's like, okay, well, if the game is just asking you, do you want to play Arkham Horror the card
Yes.
game? My answer is generally yes.
Generally.
I've gone this far.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, if it gave me that choice for where Doom awaits, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Luckily, it doesn't. So
If it's a scenario that I'm not a fan of, then maybe. But so Heart of Madness Part 1 has you set up the big map, which you'll see again in Part 2, slightly modified, but it's this like spokes and ring structure that we haven't seen before. Which, one, it's a big map. 2, I think it's cool. 3 is sometimes a little brain burny in figuring out where enemies
Yes.
go.
yeah.
What your
Like, the enemy
experience has
phase
been like.
becomes a different prospect on this map, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You got to count, like, I have found myself having to count like 3 different paths sometimes between, point A and point B. I mean, I guess it is all just like a grid, but
Yeah, but it's a round grid.
Yeah, it makes it harder for some reason. Yeah, you gotta like check, because the spokes are connected, the rings are connected, so then you gotta check like, yeah, all these different. And I've only played this one like 2 player tops, so I can imagine with more enemies it probably gets even more like brain burny.
Oh, you know what? Phileon mentions a cool thing. He laid it out 3x5 on a table so that to save table space, but you could totally do that and just know that the ends connect.
oh, do it like Pac-Man,
Yeah.
I suppose.
Interesting.
Yeah, you totally could. Interesting.
Yeah. Huh. Neat.
Yeah, so other than that though, as someone who's a big fan of like mobility and movement, it does make for some interesting like ways of moving about the map. But other than that, part 1 is basically, 1, you need to find the 5 different seals, and 2, you need to activate them. So locations will give you different ways of finding the seals, of recovering them. Usually there's some kind of like ability test. And then separate locations will give you ways of activating the seals. And then there's some interesting text on, I think it's on the agenda, that if you cross the streams, you explode. So if there's ever 2 activated seals at the same location, the whole earth gets blown up.
I
or
love that
removes life.
so much. Like, it's pretty easy to play around to my mind, but like, I love that that's just there.
Yeah.
Just don't forget. Don't do it.
Yeah, that's awesome.
For as easy as it is to avoid, especially if you're playing like 2-handed and you're controlling both, it gives me an unreasonable amount of anxiety. Like double checking.
Yeah.
I feel like that's going to be
100%.
magnified when we play Iron Man. Like, going to be double checking like every turn.
Yeah.
At some point, someone's going to be like, all right, and I'll move here, and everyone else at the table's going to be like, no!
Yeah.
I know. Do you think any Iron Man group is going to be taken out by crossing the streams?
Okay, look. That would be
It's a lo-
hilarious.
it's
But also, I wouldn't expect anyone to actually own up to that. No one will ever walk
Fair.
into it. Didn't happen. No one saw it. We don't talk about it. And I suppose that's okay
Yeah.
for Iron Man anyway.
Yeah, so then scenario interlude, someone bites the dust, unless the right person is still alive to save them.
Oh yeah, that's right. This is the one where like partners can save.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see here. It's Dr. Mala can save Kensler. Dyer can save Danforth. Kensler can save Dyer. And what, Ellsworth can save Claypool? Oh god, there's so many combinations. I don't know why I started this list. There's a whole second page. And then let's see here. Elia can save Takata. Claypool can save Elia. Cookie can save Ellsworth. Danforth can save Mala, and Takata can save Cookie. There it is. Okay, we did it. Sorry, everyone. Had to finish.
Yeah.
So I'm just trying to remember in my plays how often that has actually happened.
You save somebody?
Yeah, because, you have to have the right combination. And again, this is just another one of those like big moments that's kind of mostly based on luck.
Mm-hmm.
And that, I suppose it's mostly based on luck if the only deaths you've had are the ones that like have to happen.
Yeah.
If you're Justin and me and you just lost 3 more partners, it's going to be a little less luck based, I think.
Yeah.
None of it's going to happen.
Yeah, it
I mean, I don't think we're going to even get that far because we can just cross streams to say we did it once because it's going so poorly.
yeah.
There you go.
It's happened to me exactly once that someone has gotten saved, and I was very surprised because I forgot it could actually happen. It was with Kensler and Sinha. Was that particular pair?
Mm-hmm. And what a pair they are.
Yeah. For sure. But it's another cool mechanic that like someone can get saved, but it has to be their particular person. Yeah.
And what I like is that like not all of them are the person that they all had a relationship with at the beginning. Like half of them are probably relationships that were forged along this journey we've taken. So that's pretty cool.
Maybe the real Tekalili was the friends we made along the way.
Oh boy. Put it on the bottom of the deck.
Yeah. All right.
So how have you all found the difficulty of part 1 in general?
Totally manageable. Like, I guess, what is the question? Because there's varying rates of success, right? Like, how many of the thingies do you get activated? I've never failed to activate a couple, and be okay going into part 2.
Have you ever gotten all 5?
Nope.
Never once.
Same.
Yeah,
They're not. It's not nothing to activate them. Like.
Yeah. But I've also never played this 4-player, and I wonder if, like, if going into this campaign, if you know there's a lot of movement, and you tech your decks correctly for that, would it be easier to do all 5 with 4 players?
Probably. Presumably.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would for sure. I think like in solo lower player counts, you're really dependent on where stuff pops up on the map because it's random where the locations are. And then also like you're probably not going to be able to cover the spread of like all the different ability tests you need to do to make it happen. There's probably like, with an average investigator, maybe like 2 of the skills that you can really hit, and 1 that's maybe, and 1 that's kind of out of reach. Depends. So the resolutions of this one, if you're defeated or resigned, nothing extra happens, which is nice. If you doom out, everyone's defeated and suffers a mental trauma. Or you can shuffle like some extra Tekalilis into your deck if you want to avoid the mental trauma. If the streams are crossed, like we mentioned, R3, the campaign is lost. And if all the seals are activated in place, you don't really get any extra bonuses, but the bonus is that you have all the seals activated in place, so you're in a good shape for part 2. So there's not really any like special stuff for getting defeated versus succeeding. It's all pretty much just preparing you for part 2.
So I think this applies for part 2 as well as part 1, but I kind of glossed over it when we were starting part 1. But I love that they're starting to do if you're playing on hard, add a doom in setup, and if you're playing on expert, add 2 doom. Because presumably that means that the standard difficulties doom threshold has been adjusted to actually be standard. I'm looking at you where the gods dwell.
I see you're a little upset about that.
Tell us what you think, Sean.
I like that there's thought being put in that direction because that's cool. I'm a standard scrub and not ashamed to admit it.
Fair enough.
I have like one legit W against Where the Gods Dwell, and it's all because of that Doom Clock.
So part 2, same map, same big map, spokes and rings, but this time you get special mist pylons, 5 of them thrown in. If you kept checking in with Kensler, she'll have a plan, which will come into play when we look at the resolutions, and some parts of the end of the scenario. And any seals that you place activated last time start with an investigator activated, and any that you had but you didn't activate in place will start with an investigator, but they're not activated. And any others are just gone. You don't get a chance at them in part 2. So that's why part 1 is useful.
Mm-hmm.
And this part 2 is pretty much the whole shtick of this is you need to knock down, collapse the 5 mist pylons. You can either do that by attacking them. For some reason, I always love when card games let you attack a location.
Yeah.
Dude, my first time through this scenario, I was playing Daniela, and I had just upgraded to the higher level sledgehammer, and I was like, "Oh, my moment has
That's
come."
perfect.
Lemongrad mentions in chat he had a 4-player game of this, and they would hand the runes off to Leo with sled dogs, and he would just dunk the runes on the floor. Just
Like playing Rocket League.
yeah, yeah, I could see that. Yeah,
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, so you can either attack them where the shroud is their fight value and the clue value is their health, or you can, every time you discover a clue there, you can spend that to deal damage. So probably will depend on which investigator you're playing, or you can mix it up. And basically your goal is just to knock down these mist pylons, but simultaneously there's 15 nameless madness enemies who each aren't like a big threat, but they, like, once you get to the second agenda, they just each turn
They are
you're gonna
legion.
add another one. Yeah, so they just keep spreading throughout the map.
And I also love, like, I can't remember if it's you attack by a certain amount or evade by a certain
evade.
amount.
Yeah.
It's evade, yeah, okay. So then they like will like if cascade evade, and you can hit like an area. I actually really like the mechanic of the Nameless Madness in this one.
I was playing a campaign with Mr. Trench, and he used Rita, and that final scenario, she was just evading, like, to the moon. And I was playing, I think, Harvey or Norman, I can't remember which, but, like, she'd evade, and, like, 6 other ones would fall down. Oh, it was great. I didn't have to worry about enemy management at all. And she, like, because you can do that cascade evade, like, it was enemy management from a distance. And it was fantastic.
Now sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah, one of the things I found with this part is, one, again, it's fun because I like knocking down locations, but I feel like it does a good job of letting you tackle things in different ways. Like you mentioned, Scott, with like the evade strategy of evading all these enemies. You can just go straight Clover and just use clues to collapse them, or you can just go straight like using fight. So I think it does a good job of letting like rewarding a variety of approaches instead of just asking you to do it one way.
Yeah, absolutely.
Always appreciate those.
And once you get those pylons down...
Yeah, once you get the pylons down...
then we get our escape scene!
Yeah, so basically there's a switch up in the second part, similar to kind of what we saw in Doom of Esli, I think is the first time we saw that. But we go from this big old map to suddenly it's just a straight line. It's just a side scroller now, going from left to right. And if you make it to the end, you escape. But the way you get there is, one, either you knock down all 5 pylons, and then you get to do this escape, or essentially you kind of doom out where all 15 Nameless Madness enemies enter play, and then that will also advance you to this final escape scene. And this is one place where Kensler's plan comes into play. The first place is when there's this advancement. Unless Kensler has a plan, each investigator has to draw all Tekalili weaknesses in their deck. And then shuffle them back into their deck.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
It's bad. I mean, it depends on where you're at with Tekalili, but...
Mm-hmm.
Fortunately, that recent campaign I mentioned, where I had like 12 or 13 Tekalili in my deck, Kensler had a plan, because if not, I might have reached the table if I had to draw 13 in solo and then shuffle them back in.
That's insane.
Yeah, it's the shuffling back in, right? Like, if it just happened, right, and it surged them out or whatever, like, it just feels like a giant Tekalili surge of power. But the shuffling back in is just backbreaking.
Yeah, and it's each investigator, too.
Yeah.
Ugh.
It's brutal.
Some Lord of the Rings bullshit.
That is exactly what it is.
But in the final part of the final scenario, I'll allow it.
Yeah, that's fair.
But it's gross.
Yeah. So at that point, again, it's just a sprint. Each location has you make an agility test of varying difficulty, or you can spend a clue to automatically succeed. Everyone needs to make it to the end, and then the Nameless Madness enemies are following you, and you just kind of need to evade them or move away from them, get away from them in some way to make it to the end. But that's pretty much the kind of big finale of it all. How did you all find the difficulty of part 2 compared to part 1?
I think it depends first on how I did in part 1.
Yeah.
But if we're assuming average performance there, I think as long as you can either get big evades or do big damage, I found part 2 to be pretty manageable.
Yeah, it certainly wasn't any Where the Gods Dwell or what's the final one from TCU?
Before the Black Throne.
Yeah, that's the one.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this scenario wasn't like, as a finale, it didn't feel like backbreakingly hard, which was kind of nice, I guess. But yeah, it was absolutely fine. And the campaign I had with Mr. Trench and this like final escape run, well, he was Rita, and I had all the clues, so it was like 2 or 3 turns.
I don't have to beat the Eidolons, I just have to beat you.
Yeah. Well, I had all the clues, so I was like, okay, I automatically pass. Okay, I automatically pass. Okay,
Nice.
I'm like, yeah. Or like picking up the clue, however it worked. Like it was, he had agility, I had the clue stuff, easy peasy. So
Yeah. Well, and what I like is, at least again, I'm not that many campaigns in. I might change my mind at some point, but I wouldn't call these like the hardest of the final scenarios. But they're not without their epic moments or their like really cool conclusions. So
yes,
this is right in my wheelhouse as a standard scrub.
I still feel like in our playthrough on this one, Sean, that we got through it okay. But there were definitely parts where it was like, this could turn dicey. And so it makes you feel like you earn it, which is nice at this point in the campaign.
yeah,
And part of that is that, like, regardless of how well you're doing with, clues and overall pace and progress, like, the Nameless Madness is just popping up around you and kind of posing this constant threat. And it just kind of adds pressure to, what Arkham Horror is already normally doing.
yeah. That time pressure with the Nameless Horror, like that, or Nameless Madness, sorry, that was intense. Like I felt like that was worse than a Doom Clock in a good way, but also still, yeah.
It's a more visually striking way too, because you're like, oh my god, it's everywhere.
Yeah,
it's growing. It's like almost blob shit.
yeah.
Yeah, and as Xylo mentions in chat, it's worth mentioning you can not just evade, but you can hit them to stun multiple copies, which I tend to always think of the evade part for obvious reasons, but when I was playing my Daniela Luke campaign, I was like, how are we going to get out of this? Oh yeah, Daniela can just hit them, because I forgot about the fight part. So again, I think that's another way this scenario just like gives a little bit of an opening for every investigator to figure out a way through. But yeah, I agree with you all that I don't think this is one of the hardest final scenarios, but I'm fine with that. I also don't think it's the easiest. I think Innsmouth might be the easiest, maybe, if I had to pick. It's one of the easier ones, at least in my experience. I think one of the things it does is it does mix it up a bit. It's not just this big boss to fight. It's like spreading a big boss into like 15 different smaller enemies, which is I appreciate, and I think this has happened more and more throughout the life of the game, is kind of trying to mix up what that final scenario is, so that it's not necessarily always just fighting a big ancient one. It's, in this case, we're like collapsing and escaping, and it's really all about that and not like a big showdown at the end.
Yeah, like it doesn't reduce to just, eliminate HP on this big thing.
Yeah.
Which makes sense for the setting, so I applaud it as well.
I'm also like super cool with this scenario. Like, this campaign is so story based that the real challenge is the friends we met along the way, because they're dying. I'm okay with a softer ending. I really am. Yep.
Like, ultimately, when I enjoy difficulty, it's because it gives me a harrowing challenge that entertains me, right? It's not, I guess, me personally, I'm not the type of player who is like, oh, I did, level 0 all the way through the campaign, or whatever the cool kids are saying nowadays.
Yeah.
It's more like, how many moments was like, oh, that's awesome, or ooh, or just like, where is it hitting me? And I feel like, regardless of challenge, this campaign has so many just like cool moments and things that come together. I most of the time not even thinking about the overall difficulty like I have with past campaigns personally.
Yeah, even that campaign I mentioned with Mr. Trench and leaving at the end, like, that was a cool moment because we're like, we got to get out of here, and our characters just like made an absolute beeline to the end, and we were well situated for it. And it was easy, but that was fine. Yeah.
I feel like all I really ask is just some good puzzles to solve, like situations to figure out how to get out of, and I think this scenario does that with like, it's spiraling nameless madness, is figuring out, okay, how am I going to get away from all of these, or how can I follow the right path in the first part of the scenario to avoid them, or like what's the best route, because the mist pylons could be scattered all around, like which way do I want to approach that? So I think it does that, and if it can engage me that way, I don't need it to like destroy my soul or anything.
Yeah, like I don't need it to knock my teeth out. Just give me a fun time.
For sure.
Gentle and loving in Counterdeck, please.
I put in my dues with getting my face smashed in my card games.
That's right.
So the resolutions of part 2, if you're defeated, unsurprisingly, you lose the campaign at this point. Which I feel like Edge of the Earth doesn't really throw a lot of like lose the campaign stuff at you for the most part. So that's fair. If you're defeated, you lose the campaign. If you collapse all the pylons and Kensler has a plan, you win the campaign. But Kensler's possessed by a weird entity, so it's kind of an interesting ending there. If you collapse all the pylons, but the truth eludes you, you didn't do all the Kensler stuff, or she's dead, then you just win the campaign and you collapse the facility. If you escape without all the pylons collapsed, you win the campaign ? So you get out, you survive, but the entity escaped and could presumably do something in the future.
Can I say that I just love the kind of like tactile experience of crossing out Kensler's name and in its place writing the entity in your campaign log. I've only done it once with physical paper, that first time Justin and I played, and we lucked into the Kensler ending because she didn't die and she seemed important, so we kept going back. But like, it's such a cool ending.
Yeah, it's one of those things where it's totally just like cosmetic in a way, or like it doesn't really have any gameplay effect. Like you win the campaign either way, but like this is a narrative game to a substantial extent. So
I was gonna say, it just makes me think, so you're coming back in the future, and what you gonna do?
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
it makes me stick on that, as opposed to some of the more open-ended, well, the entity's out there, and I can put a period on that sentence. But the entity ending is just okay, I want to know more.
Yeah.
What's your end game here, entity?
How does the cookie crumble here?
Oh.
Whose cookie is it?
That is the
The-
subtitle of our upcoming movie.
Whose cookie is it? The Mythos Busters story.
Which cookie's on first base? Sorry.
Oh my.
Yeah.
That's one of those trailer slogans.
Today at Behind the Music.
God.
It's one of those funny things this game does, though, that like you put in a fair bit of work to get the Kensler plan. You do, like, you spend 3 of your visits. It does give you the one gameplay effect of avoiding those Tekalili draws at the end here, which could be substantial. But other than that, it's just this different flavor of ending. But I could see someone who's more of like a straight ahead mechanics player being like, that's all I get for all of this. But I don't know. For me personally, I think that different kind of narrative is fun to play with too.
Does anyone I have not seen nor heard any like chatter in this direction, but does anyone like take their investigator from a finished campaign into another campaign? Like, we've had those rules, like you've been able to do that from the get-go, and that's why most campaigns deal you trauma regardless of what happens. But like I don't feel like that's a thing that happens very often. Do you guys see anyone playing that way?
I have one of my work friends who also plays, and he and his brother do that, and then they try and basically see how far they can get
See
until
how
they're
far you
cooked.
can get on one deck.
Yep.
Oh man.
Yep, and
That's
try
crazy.
and I think is it in the TFA where you can remove trauma? I might be, and
yeah.
so they try and strategically put that in, but basically see how far they can push it.
Wait, so they're like when they play and they build a deck, they plan that deck for multiple campaigns. Okay, all right, that's awesome.
Yep.
Respect.
I do not personally do it, and it sounds like a way I wouldn't like to play. But I think it's neat that there are some people who do.
Yeah.
I've always wanted to do that, but surprisingly, I've never gotten around to it. But yeah, and Edge of the Earth might be a good one for that too, because if you visit certain of the partners, they remove trauma. So that might be a good one to slot in, like partway through your. I don't even know what to call that style, but yeah.
Survival style.
Well, maybe we have that as our ultra marathon style when we've done all the Ironmans, and then we need something more to do. And
We
then-
Iron Man the Iron Mans.
Yeah, and we do it all in a row, and then we're fighting both the game and the trauma we receive, and how tired we're getting by the time we get through 2 campaigns.
Interesting.
I feel like we'd have to need like a whole week of a convention to do that. I'm not opposed, but just
Keep
Hashing out logistics.
yeah.
keep saying things I like, Scott. More convention, yes.
Not to get a food
solid
truck.
month.
Yeah.
See, Ian, I too have like thought about doing that, like, chaining campaigns thing, but you know what always stops me? It's the desire to just try a new deck. Like, by the time I'm done with the campaign, I'm like, all right, cool. Saw what it could do. Let's move on. I have like 6 other ideas to fail at.
Yeah, maybe I might need to do a Finn marathon and see how far I can get them.
Oh man,
I might need to do that.
Finn's not bad.
Nope.
You need to start creating some leaderboards and stuff, and just be like, how far can you push it?
interesting.
Yeah, I wonder how many campaigns you could even like logistically make it through, because some of the campaigns deal out a fair bit of trauma when you
You're like 2 and 2.
win.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't even know. I don't think it's probably technically possible to play all the campaigns we have, but
Well, if it helps anyone's planning, Edge, if you get the special Kensler ending, does not give you any trauma. And you get 1 and 1 for R2. So not bad to
Okay.
start.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you could actually net some trauma if you visit the trauma removers each time.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. So the campaign wraps up with an epilogue, and it's just various dialogue scenes depending off of if the various pairs both survive. Which, due to randomness, I rarely get more than one of these in my experience.
My biggest familiarity with these is because I did this section for Dissonant Voices. Beyond that, I don't know if I've ever even achieved any of these.
Yeah. It's.
So, yeah, go ahead.
I'm sure there's story there. I think by the end of most of my campaigns, I'm kind of worn out on story, to be honest. I'm just like, yeah, cool. We got to the end. Whatever. Yeah. Okay.
Woo.
Yeah, we
They're
did.
like having this touching scene, and like Scott's already sailing away in the
Yeah. The plane.
These characters aren't talking about Star Wars CCG.
Yeah.
They could have, and you would never know, Scott.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So I think we'll probably save Fatal Mirage for a next episode. Yeah,
Yeah. I think
it's
so.
a different episode. Yeah.
Mostly because I have to actually play it a few times. It is my least played scenario in this campaign because I guard my partners so closely, and I always shoot for the Crystal Cavern. So beyond the required deaths, I generally only play this once in a campaign.
Yeah, it's a weird one with lots of variations. I think it can merit its own discussion, and I still want to try the experiment of playing it standalone. So you'll see. Any final
what are you doing
thoughts
after the
on
show?
these? Yeah. After we record 2 episodes, I don't know. We'll see. Any final thoughts on these scenarios?
I mean, I'll just say at this point in our discussion of the campaign, I love this campaign. I really don't think it has any low points. There are some campaigns where it's like, and one of the benefits to this new structure is even if there is a scenario that you find to be a low point, you can probably skip it. That's probably an actual option for you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fair.
So these as the climax, I love City. Like I said, it hits that perfect blend for me of being kind of like a mobility puzzle, and the permutations are crazy. You end up with a different setup every time. And then Heart of Madness is just cool. It's like a map we haven't seen before, and kind of a cool 2-step progression to a really awesome escape scene. So I am here for it.
Yeah. They're great scenarios. I don't know, and Sean, I was kind of thinking of this when you mentioned that. Was it Fatal Mirage was your favorite?
City of Elder Things.
City of Elder Things was your favorite. And I was thinking of my favorite is the mountain climbing one. But I was almost going to say, hey, what's your least favorite? And then I was like, I don't know if I have a least favorite in this one.
Yeah.
They're all just good. I enjoy all of them.
I have I'd say the closest that there is to a low point in this is Ice and Death Part 3. Because by the time I wrap Part 2, I'm kind of ready to move on to a different map. But at the same time, suddenly the action kicks up and it's a lot more exciting. So it barely feels like a low point.
Yeah, I agree. I don't think there's really a low point to this campaign. And I think the more I delve into and understand kind of how it works, it actually makes me appreciate it more, which is good. Sometimes when you delve in and see how the sausage is made, it makes you like it less. But in this case, I appreciate all the little variations that are built in throughout and kind of the story it builds along the way.
Yeah.
I really like knocking down locations. Did I mention that? So
That's
Yeah.
one of our favorite things is fucking up locations. See consternation.
Yeah.
forget enemies. I just want to knock down locations. Inanimate objects, get out of here.
God, wouldn't it be cool if there was a version of the game where you could smash down locked door with weapons instead of having to just hit a straight test?
Or use lockpicks.
Oh, okay. Let's not get carried away.
Yeah, let's not get crazy then.
All right. Excellent. Well, I think that wraps us up for this episode. Like I said, new format. Other episode to follow. We've got voicemails. We've got a fun, light discussion topic. We've got tentacle time. So we'll see you guys next time for 136.